It absolutely does affect the reputation of Cambodia. But I think what they find ultimately is that while scam centers are in the headlines, scam centers are not Cambodia. There is a large and growing legitimate economy. A lot of people look at Cambodia and say, oh, China's there. China has scale and China has infrastructure. And China is 54% of investment here. But the United States is 41% of exports from Cambodia.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Asia Forward podcast, where we explore forward-thinking ideas in U.S. and Southeast Asia business. My name is Ei Thant Sin, and I'll be your host today. For this Asia Forward podcast episode, I've traveled from Washington, D.C. to the capital of Cambodia, Phnom Penh, to take a closer look at Cambodia's economy and also about what American businesses need to understand about the investment climate. So in the recent years, Cambodia has attracted a lot of international attentions beyond tourism and economic growth. Online scam center, human trafficking, and organized crime has raised concerns about country's reputation, both among investors and travelers as well. Cambodia is also changing. The digital economy is booming, and also new industries are emerging as well. So U.S. businesses need to know what is real and what is being misunderstood, and where does Cambodia really stand in 2026. So in this episode, we're going to unpack all of it: the reputational impact, the investment climate, and also the regulations that U.S. businesses need to understand. We're also going to touch on China's economic footprint here in Cambodia, and also how Cambodia is placing itself to be a more compelling destination for U.S. investments. And to unpack all of that, we are here joined by Mr. Christopher McCarthy. He is the Executive Director for AmCham Cambodia, American Chamber of Commerce here in Cambodia. It's an organization that helps U.S. businesses navigate all this water in Cambodia as well. So thanks for joining our conversation today.
Thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure to be on the program.
And you've been here in Cambodia for decades. You started off as a CEO, and also now you're the executive director for AmCham Cambodia. So with that, when you first arrived, what stood out about Cambodia economy, and has it changed in the past decades?
So that's a great question. And when I did first arrive, it was 2014, and I came here from Singapore to look at setting up a business process outsourcing firm for the technology and software company I was working at in Singapore. And actually was looking in the region. What stood out about Cambodia was in 2014, a fast growth trajectory, a young, educated population, and an open playing field, and also what Cambodia still offers, which is 100% foreign ownership with no requirement for a local partner, and a number of other incentives for business that make it very attractive in the region for foreign investment and for foreign businesses. And so we opened a business and ran it for 10 years. During that time, I also volunteered with the American Chamber. And now I served on the board for 4 years as well. And now I have flipped over to being the executive director and helping American and Cambodian businesses navigate the waters of international trade.
So you said that there's a lot of young people, qualified skilled worker in Cambodia as well. So how does the impact the workforce here? Cambodia has enough workforce in the country to better their different sectors?
So there's a real youth pyramid here, which is inverted from what you see in some more developed OECD countries. So we really have a solid foundation to build on. The challenge, I think, is education and vocational skills training. The government is working to address that, but Cambodia, I think, as everyone knows, had come out of the war after 1992, and it did really take a couple of generations to get education system back on track. But we now have more and more workers come into the workforce who are capable of performing at the levels needed for not just in mid-level management, but even in executive management. which is nice to see. And I think as the years go by, we'll see more and more professional, capable management coming out of Cambodia as well. And I do know the government is really taking a lot of steps to address the needs of businesses, both local businesses and international ones, in training and education. That's a big focus.
Yeah. So Cambodia has recently caught the global attentions in the recent years about the scam center issues. Unfortunately, many Americans are very familiar with the online scams. So has it affected the way that U.S. businesses are done in this country?
It absolutely does affect the reputation of Cambodia. People are aware of the scam center and the scam center issue. And I think what it does for investors is it adds more time to investment and to due diligence. But I think what they find ultimately is that while scam centers are in the headlines, scam centers are not Cambodia. There is a large and growing legitimate economy. The same way that Italy is not the mafia, Japan is not the Yakuza. There is an underground, and it has caught global attention, I think partly because of the technological nature of it. But the government is taking steps to fight that. There have been hundreds of crackdowns on scam centers. A new anti-scam law has been passed, and they've really made an initiative, and it is continuing. They understand, the government here understands that is an issue that affects foreign investment and foreign businesses. And I think what I hear from businesses is that they're very pleased with the steps that have been taken so far and the direction of travel there.
Yeah, it's not just in the interest of American businesses, but also for the Cambodian government. And like you said, I noticed that there's a new cyber crime law that passed. So is there any shift in regulations that will better help, or like a peace of mind for U.S. investors, new or old, that's trying to plant their seeds in this country?
There are lots of new regulations on the books as we try to fight, and I think in all countries also, as organized crime gets more sophisticated and innovative, the law has to catch up. And Cambodia is following suit with, as have other countries, with putting regulations in place that make those things prosecutable, that make them specifically illegal, especially around the technology scams. But again, they have the same problem as other countries as well. The laws are on the books, but enforcement is a challenge. And as I said, as we were talking earlier, there've already been a couple of hundred scam center busts this year. The efforts continue, and I think they've sent a message to everyone else as well. And the new anti-scam center law actually provides serious prison terms for people who participate. So they're making an effort. But
and also have repatriated a lot of victims that were brought into the scam compounds, right?
So a lot of victims have been sent back home. And there have been some challenges around that because there actually are quite a lot of them, and they've lost their passports and money. So there are NGOs and the government working on that. At the same time, you see that like the Prince Group chairman Chen Zhe was extradited back to China for his alleged crimes and participation in the scam industry, and some other folks as well have also been either arrested or repatriated. So we see progress there. Yeah.
Cambodia has so much to offer, has like this world-class destination like Angkor Wat. And usually this is in the headlines, but recently the issue about some scam centers is taking over different headlines. So has that affect how the rest of the world view Cambodia?
So maybe I'll break that down into tourism versus business. From the popular opinion of Cambodia and the tourist industry, I think there's a big difference between what we see in the EU and the United States versus Asia and East Asia. There is far more awareness of the scam centers in East Asia than there is in EU or the US. I was just in the US and talking to people about it. My family, they hadn't even heard of it. But if you go to Korea, where there was an incident last year that went viral, everyone's aware of that. So from a tourism perspective, I think it's having more of an impact on tourism from East Asia. And it will take some time for the tourism industry to recover from that reputational tourism hit. But at the same time, I mean, tourism is down 48% over, I think, pre-COVID levels. So that's a big challenge. But let's not forget that actually 900,000 international visitors a year came from Thailand that were Thai nationals, and they're not coming anymore. So the Thai border conflict has also contributed to the collapse of tourism. The government is meeting and working internally and externally to repair that, but it will take some time. On the U.S. side, I don't see any Americans canceling their tourism plans because of scam centers. They're not as aware of it, and I think maybe the American psyche doesn't think they're going to get caught up in that. And at the end of the day, also tourists, they don't see scam centers. They see Angkor Wat. Hopefully, they visit Phnom Penh, which is a beautiful city with a lot of arts and a lot to offer, and hopefully they also go to the coast, which is stunningly beautiful beaches. But they don't see the compounds. But to your question, it does have an impact for the tourist side. On the business side, as I mentioned, investors are aware of it, but they also see that Cambodia is a fast-growing economy, one of the fastest in the world over the past 25 years, and that it's got tremendous incentives in place for businesses, qualified investment projects, special economic zones, 100% foreign direct ownership is allowed, no export controls, no exchange controls. So it's a really attractive destination. So they balance that, I think. And the thing that happens is they'll do their due diligence. So what happens, I think, because of the scam centers and business or foreign investment is it provides some headwinds. So they have to do more due diligence and more investigation. But at the end of that, they do ultimately see Cambodia is a great business destination.
So if you weigh the extra work that you need to do in terms of due diligence versus the opportunities that Cambodia offer, you would say that the investments are still coming to Cambodia because it's still very attractive.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. We're aware of a lot of companies that are looking to move here. Some large U.S. manufacturers are moving more production here. The United States itself, actually, the Development Finance Corporation just put $100 million US into expanding the new airport. Cambodia also is very nicely located geographically to become a hub for transport in this region. So we also see a lot of interest from logistics companies as well. That's part of the airport initiative. But yes, in general, I think we get a lot of positive inquiries at the chamber and also help some of the existing companies to navigate.
Would you say the investors or like U.S. businesses were concerned about the reputational impact that the scam center had? Or have they already been, solved with the new cybercrime law and seeing the initiative from the government doing crackdowns? Does it ease their concerns?
The crackdowns and the attention of the government on stamping out scam centers is absolutely helping with investment. It helps assuage some of the concerns that investors have. But I don't think the scam centers per se are scaring off businesses. They understand that countries have an underworld. If you're going to move in there, you might consider that. But at the end of the day, the legitimate economy is much larger than the underworld. And unfortunately, the headlines sometimes like to feature the less salient parts of society. It's better for clicking than the hard work of building the country. So.
You mentioned briefly about the Cambodia being nicely located for different manufacturing or for different businesses. What would you say is Cambodia's strongest opportunity for U.S. businesses? Which sector would you say is the strongest one?
So that's a great question because a lot of people look at Cambodia and say, oh, China's there. China has scale and China has infrastructure. And China is 54% of investment here. But the United States is 41% of exports from Cambodia. So I think if you look at the opportunities here, it's manufacturing, agribusiness, healthcare, education, light manufacturing is coming. People look at Cambodia and they think, oh, garment factory production, and that is solid. But we are expanding into light manufacturing, electronics, home goods, furniture, and sort of moving up the value chain. And that's where American companies are valued, because American companies bring brand, they bring quality, governance, trust. Those are things that consumers want, and businesses want to provide those. So it's a balance with China, and I think that what the American investors bring is sort of more of that aspect, adding value to products and services.
Yeah, like let's talk about China's economic footprint in this country. Cambodia has a lot of Chinese investments, different sectors like constructions as well. So, and with U.S. companies, I also see a lot of U.S. products being sold, and all the businesses, U.S. businesses thriving here. So, is there a pull between trying to buy Chinese products or American businesses in Cambodia? Or like you said, is American brand still thriving here and people would like to buy American?
My opinion is, and I think this is backed up by data, people do actually appreciate American products because of their trustworthiness and the focus on safety and quality. And so there is a real desire for American products here. We also see a lot of Chinese products in the market, of course. But one of the really interesting opportunities, widening one of the doors for investment, is the agreement on reciprocal trade that Cambodia signed with the U.S., the new tariff agreement. Cambodia will now recognize FDA approval. So instead of a lengthy approval process here for agriculture goods, medicine, medical devices, those items can now be exported to Cambodia with, in most cases, a zero tariff and with the FDA regulation accepted.
Food and Drug Administrative approval. Yes,
the Food and Drug Administration. And then to go back to your question, people look at that as a mark of quality and safety, and so that drives more of a demand for American products.
And thank you, Mr. McCarthy. And to our viewers, if you're enjoying our conversation, make sure to click subscribe on our channel. So how would you characterize Cambodia's digital economy? And where do you see its growth going, in what trajectory? And is there any areas that it could use more support?
So the digital economy in Cambodia is one of the big bright spots in the economy. And the government is making a big effort to support that. So we have fast and cheap internet, among the fastest and cheapest, least expensive, let's say, in East Asia. And I think that has helped drive a lot of innovation and growth here on the ground. So in terms of digital companies, there's a great big opportunity now for American companies to further their entry into Cambodia, because again, going back to the agreement on reciprocal trade, there's a commitment to no taxation of American digital products here. So that's a big opportunity as well. And when you look at young people, just like all over the world, they've grown up online. When we started my earlier business here, it was hard to find anyone who even knew Photoshop. Then, now kids train themselves on that and they come in and they're experts. So this is a big shift in 10 years. So there is an eager young workforce that is digitally skilled. But I will say that is limited. And that is one place we do need support. Training and skills, upskilling of the workforce to be better able to participate in the digital economy. The digital ecosystem here is very forward and progressive, especially in payments and digital. And that's another place I think there's a lot opportunity. I was just back in the US and having to use physical credit cards, and it just seems so weird to me. I'm just used to scanning or tapping
QR codes.
Yeah. And even beyond that, the digital ecosystem here for banking is one of the most advanced in the world. It's kind of surprising, but there it is.
And then dollarized economy also make transactions easier.
We do have a dollarized economy, and that makes transactions easier. The interesting thing about the QR codes, which this started in Cambodia, and now in some neighboring countries they've taken this on as well. But the national bank put a switch in place that clears QR code transactions between banks. So there's no transaction fees for the typical transaction processors, whose names I won't mention because they don't like that. But I will say this about the traditional transaction processors, which is like MasterCard, Visa, UnionPay, Discover Network. They do add a layer of value on top of the transaction processing, like refunds and fraud protection that a straight QR transfer won't do. But that aside, I think it's really, people come here and they're amazed by the QR code payment system.
It's very easy to, even as a visitor, Cambodia, it's one of the easiest countries to navigate around in Southeast Asia. Yeah. First, I can use my dollars. Second, a lot of young people are super smart, kind, and friendly as well, and easy to find people to work with now that we're doing our episode in Cambodia as well.
Oh, and I'm happy to hear that. I completely agree.
Yeah, and there's also like many Cambodia diaspora all over the world, including Khmer Americans in America as well. And how has the large diaspora communities all over the world, and also including America, has contributed to the economy inside the country as well?
So the diaspora community, that is a great untapped resource. Slightly tapped. I mean, there are people who have come back from the United States, from France, from Australia. Often they're second generation. They're professionals. They have expertise. They're sometimes business owners, and many of them come back and they bring that expertise with them.
And their connections.
And their connections, exactly. So the segue to, they're also potentially an untapped resource for foreign direct investment assistance, or maybe they can make their own investments. But you do need somebody with a familiarity with the market, with trust networks here, and who know the language. It will help you better navigate coming into the country and doing business here. And that diaspora community is a tremendous resource for that. Whether it's in California or Massachusetts, where there are big populations, in the U.S., France, Australia, we see many coming back. And the other interesting thing is they are welcomed. There are some other countries in East Asia where the diaspora community isn't necessarily as well welcomed. But in Cambodia, it's a fantastic resource, and the local population likes it.
If you were to advise a first-time U.S. businesses, American company that's going to enter Cambodia, what are the first things that they would need to know?
Well, they should join the American Chamber of Commerce and consider the U.S. ASEAN Business Council if they're at a large enough level. But I think the first things a business interested in here needs to know is you do need a local partner. It's more difficult to come in with no connections. But local partners are law firms, market entry firms. We have many as members of AmCham, and they will help you navigate the local environment. I like to say, often you'll see Cambodia as not ranking near the top on ease of setting up a business. I think Singapore is number one. You can do it online in an hour. But when you're on the ground here, you realize things are doable. The government is working to make them more effective. Quite a few of the application and license processes have moved online. So that makes it easier. But to answer the question of what businesses need, I would say really a local partner is going to make it a lot easier for you. And also easier for your due diligence. And in that respect, I would say make sure your partner is your strategy. for entry. And you need to make sure you have a reputable partner who has real government experience, real connections, and a clean background. And that will help you be much more successful than going on your own. I will say that actually when I started my business, I did it on my own, and it took a long time, and I realized it would have been much faster.
You learned it the hard way.
I did.
By doing it.
Yes, I did it, and I realized it would have been better to have a local partner.
Yeah. You highlight the importance of having a local partner, but how do you choose the perfect one?
Well, a lot of that depends on the way you would find any partner, which is you need to have sort of shared values, shared understanding. And then apart from that, just doing research, looking at who their other clients are and what their reputation is, because that matters a lot. And then making sure that they do understand and have gone through registration, licensing, customs, regulatory processes, whatever your issues are. But I'd say it's the same as picking any partner. You need to interview them and make sure you're aligned.
Yeah. Well, since we're Asia Forward, I want to end on a forward-looking note. So if we were to have this same conversation again in 5 to 10 years from now, what would be your hope that has changed in the Cambodia business environment and its ability to attract U.S. investments?
So in 5 to 10 years, the steps Cambodia, I think, needs to take to get there to a bright, prosperous future. And it is heading in that direction. But to make sure it gets there and to make sure it accelerates, finish the cleanup. Finish the cleanup of the scam centers. That's really job one. That is an issue, and it does drag on reputation, both for tourism and for business. And then apart from that, I think Cambodia is doing the right things with its qualified investment projects, with its incentives for businesses. So I think as long as it continues on that road and continues to be a very amenable destination for foreign investment, that it will continue to grow. Unfortunately, I think like the whole world, there's some headwinds for the next couple of years. So GDP is expected to be lower, but even with the oil shock and other impacts, the World Bank says 3 to 4% growth this year for Cambodia, which many OECD countries would kill for, and we think it's bad because it's so much slower than it has been. But I think we'll get back to solid high growth in the 6 to 8% range for the next 10 years, and then when you come back in 10 years, there will be even more skyscrapers and infrastructure and international tourists and businesses. It'll be exciting. And it will be an exciting 5 to 10 years to get there. That's a promising future. It is. The future is bright. And digital, actually, going back to that, which is close to my heart, I think is a big part of that. Cambodia can be an important player in the digital ecosystem as well. Yeah, thank you so much for joining our conversation today. And you've helped me unpack all the different reputational impact and also about the challenges and the, I guess, optimism that U.S. businesses have in moving their business here. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And to our viewers, thanks for watching till the end of the episode. And our full episodes are available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on our social media on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and find us on our website at asiaforward.org. My name is Ei Thant Sin, and I'll see you next time.